to Fantastic History. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Clay.
We are a husband and wife duo who enjoy telling each other about amazing events, people, and mysteries throughout history. It's been too long since I've really leaned into my witchy, creepy, goth vibe. So today I want to talk about the dark histories behind some of the most popular nursery rhymes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How about that? So the most popular example of this is how Ring Around the Rosie is really about the Black Plague.
Yeah.
Everybody has heard that one, right? That one's, and once you know, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But that's far from being the only spooky little curse we were all chanting as kids. So let's start with Rockabye Baby, which has been referred to as America's favorite lullaby.
I would agree with that.
And we've all had it sung to us as kids. Those of us with kids have probably sung it. It's very prevalent in the culture.
Absolutely, especially the little tune.
Yes. Well, it was originally called Hush-a-Bye Baby and first appeared in Mother Goose's Melody in 1765. The editor of that book added a note under Hush-a-Bye Baby that said to consider it a warning to the proud and ambitious who climb so high that they generally fall at last.
What? Why does that have to be a warning? Why not?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because there's a story behind it.
Okay.
These shots weren't aimed at just any proud and ambitious person. It's a warning to everybody else, but it was specifically referring to King James II of England. This is all part of the Protestant versus Catholic debate that started when Henry VIII invented a new religion so that he could marry Anne Boleyn. Now, I'm sure this goes without saying since I literally have an Anne Boleyn tattoo, but I really respect that decision, even if Henry was famously a huge piece of shit.
Yeah.
This man was like, I'm not going to be Catholic no more because I want to marry this girl.
Sure.
I respect that.
Why not?
Anyway, James II wanted to make England Catholic again, following the Protestant dynasty created by Henry VIII and upheld by two of his three children, Edward VI and Elizabeth I. England had been Protestant for so long at the time of James II's ascension that it was far from popular. People did not want to go back to Catholicism at that point. James II's heir presumptive was his daughter, Mary, who was married to William the Orange, a well-known Protestant. However, she was displaced in the line of succession when James and his second wife had a son. The surface-level interpretation of Hush-a-Bye Baby is that the lullaby was an out-and-out death wish against this baby prince. Right. Another similar, yet more in-depth theory, though, is that the entire song is allegorical, which is obviously going to be a theme of this episode.
Sure, yeah.
In this interpretation of the song, the line, "When the wind blows, the cradle will rock."
Yeah.
So that's, the wind there represents, quote, the Protestant wind that will blow the fleet of William over to Britain, referring to William the Orange. Furthermore, the bough that breaks in the wind symbolized the end of the Stuart line. So when William comes over, he's going to end your entire line, and we're taking back the country for the Protestants.
Sure.
With that in mind, the ominous meaning behind the lyrics becomes very clear. He's going to end the entire line, including that baby. No one is safe here because that baby usurped his wife's place in the line of succession.
And it's going to fall.
That baby's got to go. Now let's stick with the British monarchy for our next two entries.
Jeez.
Mary Quite Contrary and Three Blind Mice.
Okay.
The quite contrary Mary in question is none other than Mary I, the second of Henry VIII's children to take the throne after his death. Now, just a second ago when I mentioned, hey, two of his three kids were Protestant, you might have noticed that Mary's name was not brought up at that time.
Sure.
Yeah, she's perhaps better known as Bloody Mary.
Oh.
One of the most popular and enduring figures in urban legend, to this day. I still won't, I'll be 40 years old this year, and I still will not go in a dark bathroom if there's a mirror. because I am still low-key terrified of this broad. Like, even though I'm not about to step in there and say Bloody Mary, what if somebody right before me did and she's still there waiting and she's going to kill me?
Of course, it's a reasonable fear.
I will not, like, I will reach in and feel for the light switch before I will go in. I will not do it. Like, even in our home, it's not happening. If anybody needs a refresher, the most popular version of the nursery rhyme goes, Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. This one is great because it makes perfect sense as like just a straightforward rhyme about a girl who loves gardening.
Sure.
Like, you wouldn't even question it. But it also breaks down really neatly, too, so that once you hear the backstory, you're just like, oh, my God, it was there all the time, and I'm going to vomit. So Mary the First was contrary in the fact that, like I said, she was the only one of Henry VIII's children to be like, actually, I'm still Catholic, and England also is still going to be Catholic. Goodbye. Thank you so much for asking. Apart from it being a matter of faith, keep in mind that her father created the Church of England, like I was saying, wholly and entirely so he could divorce Mary's mother, Catherine of Aragon, and marry Anne Boleyn instead, thus removing Mary from the line of succession. Like, this is a huge deal. And like something we talked about also, like way back with the Wars of the Roses. Yeah. That these women were coming out swinging because you're not going to take my kid off that throne. Like, even though he's 5 months old, we're not doing this. A huge deal back then. In Mary's mind, Anne Boleyn was literally a demon who had bewitched her father and destroyed everything Catherine and Mary held dear, up to and including their religion. So, like, she was pretty intensely Catholic, no matter what the rest of her family or her country was telling her. Mm-hmm. She's like, you're not taking that away from me, I'm sorry. It doesn't get much more contrary than that. So her flourishing garden is, in fact, a cemetery. During her 5-year reign, she had at least 287 Protestants burned at the stake for heresy, which is also how she got the nickname Bloody Mary. Old girl had a lot of blood on her hands. If you're wondering about the math on that, by the way, 5 years on the throne, 287 dead, she averaged one execution a week the entire time she was on the throne.
It's efficient.
It's efficient. It's also quite grotesque.
Oh, yeah.
But as bad as that is, it's the last line of the nursery rhyme that really turns my stomach. So as a refresher, with silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. That's how her garden grows. This one is all about torture methods used on suspected heretics. Silver bells is another name for thumbscrews. Now, if you don't know what that is, good news. I looked it up.
Oh, great.
Yeah, strap in.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. So it was basically a small vice. The victim would place one of their fingers or toes between the plates, and the interrogator would slowly tighten a screw that pushed the plates closer and closer together until the bone was crushed. Like irreparable. Later versions were larger so that a whole hand or foot could be shattered at one time. Like, again, she's very efficient.
Oh, great.
But in Mary's day, we were doing like one finger, one toe. It took a while to realize, if we just made this bigger, it would take less time.
Sure, but what's the fun in that?
Exactly.
Ugh.
Cockle shells were a similar setup, but the first syllable of the word lets you know what's going into that vice instead of the fingers and toes.
I really hate that.
I thought you might. Yeah. You might. The pretty maids all in a row is more or less exactly what it sounds like. In this context, people lined up waiting to be executed.
Sure.
Yeah. But if Mary hasn't ruined enough of your childhood, there's more. She's also the inspiration for 3 Blind Mice, which was the first thing I ever learned to play on piano. So thanks for that, me. Good job. The first recorded instance of this nursery rhyme goes all the way back to 1609.
Dang.
It's the oldest one on the list today, at least in its final form, the oldest one. Rather than mice, the real story is about 3 men who came to be known as the Oxford Martyrs. Hugh Latimer, Nicholas Ridley, and Thomas Cranmer. Latimer and Ridley were burned at the stake on October 16th, 1555, and Cranmer was burned 5 months later on March 21st. As for what makes these three guys stand out from the literal hundreds she executed, well, Hugh Latimer was the personal Church of England chaplain to Mary's half-brother, King Edward VI. So, a super prominent Protestant figure.
Yeah.
Nicholas Ridley was known as the Bishop of London and Westminster, and he had been an outspoken supporter of Lady Jane Grey, aka the 9 Days Queen. Like, we also mentioned her pretty briefly in the Wars of the Roses episode again. She took the throne after King Edward VI's death. Now, it's worth noting that Edward went out of his way to write Mary out of the line of succession on his deathbed, because Henry VIII, he was like back and forth with who's going to be on the throne next or whatever. It created a huge mess, pretty much like everything he did. But the way that he left things, it was pretty vague. So it was kind of up to Edward to like really lock it down and keep Mary out. He didn't really do any better of a job than his dad on that one, unfortunately. So suffice to say, Mary was not a big fan of Lady Jane Grey since she stepped in and snatched that crown, even if it was only for a week and a half.
Oh, sure.
Lastly, we have Thomas Cranmer. Clay, if that name sounds familiar to you, which I'm not surprised if it's not, it's been a while since we watched The Tudors, but he was prominently featured on Anne Boleyn's like big season 2. And for, I think, honestly, the rest of the run of the show. It's also been a while since I've seen like the last couple seasons.
Yeah, it is familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was one of Anne Boleyn's like besties. He was in her inner circle since before she even knew Henry. And y'all know, like, Mary hated Anne Boleyn like nobody else. Like, she would have been her number one enemy, even this many years after her death. To give him his proper dues, Cranmer was the Archbishop of Canterbury, a role he won with the support of the Boleyn family, again, before her marriage to Henry. He also played a vital role in the dissolution of the marriage between Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon.
Oh.
And he was the one who validated the marriage of Henry and Anne.
Oh, he's in big trouble.
He is in a huge trouble. Like, Mary wanted his ass in particular.
Yeah.
If you venerate the martyrs or just want to celebrate these guys, their feast day is October 16th.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. I'm pleased to report we are done talking about Bloody Mary now.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next one is like a relative palate cleanser from all of that. So next up we have Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush.
Okay.
Which, you know, it's very simplistic, like repetitive. Like, I think it's got like 6 or 7 verses all total.
Yeah, I don't remember that one as well, but
I'll sing it off mic for you.
oh man.
No, I'm not doing all that because I'll have to listen back to this later and it will make me want to run off the road.
That's fair.
Yeah. So this one was first published in a book of games for English children by James Orchard Hallowell in the mid 1800s. The mulberry bush in question was located at His Majesty's Prison at Wakefield in West Yorkshire, England. It was planted in the middle of the exercise yard, surrounded by the track where female prisoners took their daily walks so early in the morning.
I see.
Yeah. The verses continue on through the mundanities of prison life. This is the way we wash our face. This is the way we comb our hair. Brush our teeth, get dressed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yeah.
Doing it all again in an endless, vicious circle. We are going around the mulberry bush. We're brushing our hair. We're brushing our teeth. We're going around the mulberry bush. We're,
Yeah.
just over and over and over. So that's the history of that one. That's the whole thing. It was just women in a prison.
It's very strange, right?
Right.
Why did Mother Goose buy that one?
Mother Goose was a sicko, if I'm entirely honest. Like, she just loved the suffering of others. I mean, don't forget, it was a Mother Goose book that was like, this is a warning that your baby's gonna fucking die.
Well, I just don't understand why it couldn't have been like, I guess sensibilities are just different, but like if someone came to Mother Goose on her nest and said, hey, Mother Goose, I have this story about a little chick that loses her mother and comes back, and it's a little rhyme I made, and it's really sweet. And she's just like, yeah, but what's the taking a hit off her cigarette? Yeah, but what's the where's the allegory about death?
Was your little goose, was your chicken, was she kidnapped, sexually assaulted by like a weasel?
Yeah, it was.
No, it's just a cute little story. Pass. Hard pass.
Not interested.
No. Keep walking.
Yeah, our stories today are weak sauce.
I know. Oh, was this a cute little bunny was eating carrots from a farmer? Boo!
No one cares.
Get that out of here.
No one cares. Make it about Hitler.
Mm-hmm. I think that one is mouse. It's not a rabbit. So, yikes.
Man.
Yeah. So
Nursery rhymes are so weird.
That's the whole thing of the episode. Is like,
yeah.
you hear these things, and especially like, I mean, frankly, this gets into a much bigger issue, but you hear things as a child and you don't question it, and you grow up thinking this is just a song about you're doing a little circle dance around a mulberry bush. First of all, idiot, mulberries grow on trees. Lie number one.
Fool.
I know.
Oh man.
Shall we?
Go on.
Okay.
Let's do it.
We're getting close to the end. Like, this is a shorter episode because it is pretty bleak, and I want, after this, like, go and listen to Taylor Swift, and you'll feel a lot better. Like, I know I will.
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Okay, great. And if you want my recommendations, I'd be happy to share a playlist. Wink. All right. So next one is a little more fun than that. We're at least not in prison.
Cool.
No one dies in this one.
Oh.
Yeah. Great. So we're going to look no further for a fun time than Jack and Jill. Jack and Jill go up the hill, fetch a pail of water.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think this one is really like grim and dark, and that it references the French Revolution. Like that it more specifically the executions of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
But Jack and Jill predates their execution. So it's like that's a very common misconception, but like easily provable because the rhyme's been around longer than that happened,
Okay.
It's actually a lot more pedestrian than that. Like the actual inspiration behind this one is that King Charles I of England, because we can't seem to stay away. Like I wish I knew how to quit you with like my weird nursery rhymes. They're all about the British monarchy. These people have just been out here wild for like a millennia.
Yeah.
But so Charles I of England thought it would be a good idea to put a tax on alcohol in 1643. We all know the reputation of the Brits. This did not go over well.
Can't imagine.
No. So at the time, alcohol was measured in units called jacks and jills.
Oh.
Spelled like fish gills, but pronounced Jill.
Okay.
Now, as you'd expect, like we were saying, tax on alcohol, not very popular. Like it wouldn't have been popular here. It wouldn't be popular really anywhere. Like as we just learned the other day, there are 11 countries in the world where alcohol is like outright banned.
Right.
But of the other, like 180 plus negotiable long history there, countries that do drink alcohol, this is not going to be popular.
Of course.
Like you're out your damn mind. So Charles had to roll that back. But just to be petty, he then turned around and decreased the size of Jack's and Jill's to 1/8 of a pint and 1/4 pint, respectively.
Huh.
So the value of a Jack fell down and the value of a Jill came tumbling after.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like crowns were another name for money back then. Because it always had a picture of the sovereign on it. So Jack fell down and broke his crown.
Yeah.
Jill came tumbling after.
Well, I like the original, the other interpretation, even though it predates it. It fits better.
It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. But
nope.
Sure.
We haven't mentioned Hamilton in a while, so I'm just going to go ahead and bring that up. But it's like in the rap battle, when Jefferson's like, we got really pissed off when you taxed our tea. What's going to happen when you try and tax our whiskey?
Yeah, they're gonna talk to Mother Goose.
Yeah, you can get another Jack and Jill, son, and you don't want it with me. No. Similarly, of course, Baa Baa Black Sheep is about the tax on wool set by King Edward I of England.
Hmm.
I swear to God, all of them. So he set up this tax during the medieval period. So this one is like goes way back. The Great Custom, as it was called, meant that he received a third of all profits from the sale of wool. The sheep in the rhyme mentions having enough wool to fill 3 bags before breaking it down. One for the master, one for the dame, and one for the little boy who lives down the lane. The little boy who got that third bag was the king.
The little boy.
Yeah, the little boy who lives down the lane is King Edward I.
I see.
Now, as for why it was a black sheep specifically, it's because their wool was less valuable because it couldn't be dyed.
Okay.
So there's actually been a lot of controversy about like Baba black sheep because it obviously the sheep is black and it has the word master in it.
Yeah.
A lot of people assume that it was like slavery adjacent, at least.
Sure.
So there's been a lot of uproar about how it's racist and all this and that. I definitely understand why like people would jump to that conclusion, but this rhyme is hundreds of years older than America.
Yeah.
So I can assure you it is not that.
Yeah.
All right. The origin behind London Bridge is pretty dark.
Falling down. Yeah.
Well, this one dates back to 2006 when Lady Stacey Ann Ferguson found herself repeatedly unable to resist the charms of an ambiguous gentleman of ill repute.
Wait, what?
London Bridge by Fergie.
Oh, man. I really didn't like that one.
Well, the thing is, London Bridge by Fergie was based on a much older nursery rhyme, similarly titled London Bridge is Falling Down.
Really?
Yeah. See, that's where you went wrong, is I said the origin behind London Bridge.
Yeah.
And you assumed I meant London Bridge is falling down. You just jumped the gun a little. They're two different things.
I've done it again.
So London Bridge is Falling Down is much older, again, than 2006. And its lyrics first were printed in the mid-1700s, although there were similar, like, bridge-related songs all the way back in the late Middle Ages that were, like, similarly structured to London Bridge is Falling Down.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a whole category of songs.
It probably is.
Here comes another bridge. Oh, that's where the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it to the bridge. It's all about bridge songs.
Weird.
So there are a few possible origins for this one, which you'd expect with there being multiple iterations over hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And or an entire category of song, like undetermined. The most likely inspiration for like the original version of the song was a Viking attack in the year 1014.
That is 1014?
1014. Led by Olaf Haraldsson, the raiders sacked the city of London and destroyed the bridge over the River Thames. It was such a legendary feat that one of the oldest iterations of London Bridge is Falling Down comes from a 13th century Old Norse poem, one line of which translates to London Bridge is broken down.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's so interesting about that is like not only have there been several versions of the song, there have also been several versions of the bridge. Like the original like London Bridge like was back in the 10th, 11th century.
Yeah.
Torn down by the Vikings. There were other like in the 1300s, there was another one built in the same location that was destroyed. In the 1400s, another one built in the same location that was destroyed. In the 1700s, there was another one built in this like very close to that burned down. And like today, there's Tower Bridge, which is pretty much in the same location. They kept building the bridge in the same place and the bitch kept breaking down. Like something kept happening to it every time. Like the one that's there now is quite a bit older.
Yeah.
They haven't had to rebuild in like the last couple hundred years, I think. But it's just really interesting that they kept building it in that spot, even though it's obviously cursed.
Well, things just kept happening. And they kept writing songs about them.
Yep.
To try and warn us.
As recently as 2006.
Yeah, Fergie.
Every time you come around, my London Bridge want to go down.
Man, I really hate Fergie.
Fair enough.
It's got to be said.
Yeah, no, that's really fair. That is really fair. So I want to end with the Muffin Man.
Oh, the Muffin Man.
The Muffin Man. So outside of that one torture scene in Shrek,
Yeah.
this little nursery rhyme is like super innocuous and doesn't seem like it could possibly have any sort of storyline to it. The whole thing amounts to, do you know the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane? Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Like it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's been the entirety of the poem since it was first printed in a British manuscript in 1820. It's about food delivery people in the Victorian era who were called muffin men, no matter what type of food they delivered. So like the milkman was a muffin man. The egg guy, a muffin man. The muffin guy, muffin man.
With the Iceman?
Muffin man.
Confusing.
Right? So there's actually like nothing wild in the origin of this. But what is wild is that there's an extremely popular urban legend around the Muffin Man, the nursery rhyme.
Okay.
According to the legend, the Muffin Man was a serial killer in the 1600s named Frederick Thomas Linwood. Linwood was a baker, primarily of muffins, as you'd expect,
Yeah.
and he would lure in his victims, who were mostly young children, with muffins. There's debate as to whether this is a muffin as we think of it, or like an English muffin, or like what the deal was.
Sure.
Either way, Muffin Man. So he would tie a string around a muffin and basically go fishing with it in the streets.
Oh, like the old dollar bill on the hook trick.
Exactly.
Classic.
Like, as hilariously improbable as that story is, that there's some guy like fishing with a muffin and then like stabbing children in an alleyway.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no historical record of a man named Frederick Thomas Linwood. Like, none whatsoever.
Do you know when this urban legend started?
There was some debate about that too. In the late 2010s.
Yeah, it really feels like...
It's like a creepypasta.
Yeah,
Yep.
It feels kind of like that. But people have been doing that for like innocent stuff online for, ever since like the 2000s. But this is something that people have been doing for forever, just in general.
Yeah, it's just something people do. But like, it was somebody, I didn't write this down and I really should have. I did not expect you to ask like when the story started spreading. I should have anticipated that, but it was like some guy running like a Twitter account that was basically like The Onion. Like posted about like, oh, here's like this interesting fact of like the Muffin Man is actually about this serial killer, and he's the one who came up with the name Frederick Thomas Linwood and like gave all this like detailed information.
Yeah.
People saw that and just like, boomers on The Onion didn't realize it was satirical.
Right.
And it started spreading. And now people believe that that's the thing. And like the belief is so prevalent that a reporter from Medium did an entire deep dive article about it as recently as 2021.
That's hilarious.
And like I was like, okay, but that can't be real. So I found the article from Medium because I was like, surely like I'm going to find that it's going to have the byline, this lady's byline, and then underneath it, the publication date's going to be like April 1st, right?
Yeah.
No. This lady was dead ass serious.
That's really funny.
It's quite embarrassing. And the fact that the article is still up, even though it's like so easily disproven.
Well, it's important, people, to, when you look something up, to go a little bit deeper than right now. Who knows if this will change. Right now, if you go on Google and you search something, it gives an AI like breakdown of what you're asking about or looking for. And that is pulling data from the internet, which means that it could be wrong.
Yes.
There's a not very famous but very prevalent problem with Paula Abdul.
Oh.
She, I saw this on, I think, a Vsauce video. Are you familiar with the site Clickhole?
Yes.
So they put stuff on there that is that's like The Onion, but it's even like less ridiculous.
Okay.
It's
like more plausible.
More plausible, but still fake.
Sure.
And it's something about Paula Abdul's first kiss.
Yes.
And it's a completely made up clickhole little blurb.
Mm-hmm.
But that story, the story of that, has become like taken over as real.
Oh, yeah.
And I think even when you search like what is Paula Abdul's first kiss, the AI will regard that story as accurate because it has a lot of online presence, instead of the real story, which is like not interesting, just some guy.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
So what Sarah's saying is extremely important, and probably why that article is still up and necessary, because people will lie.
Oh, yeah. And then when I even did like a Google search for the Muffin Man, because I saw like this little, like just a brief mention of it on a list, I was like, well, I want to like get more information, because it was even like the thing that I found originally was like, this guy was a murderer. He was a serial killer. It was England's first serial killer, and he murdered children. His name was Frederick Thomas Linwood. And I was like, girl, what? So I looked up Frederick Thomas Linwood. I typed his name directly into Wikipedia. No hits. That would absolutely not be true if he was England's first serial killer.
Yeah, that's a bit of a red flag.
Huge red flag. So, yeah, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back. And you know where I ended up finding the real story and the link to the Medium article was on Snopes.com. Snopes has had to cover this because so many people have been like, oh, my God, tell me about Frederick.
The Muffin Man.
Oh, God.
Good old Snopes.
Good old Snopes. So, I mean, you know, the truth is always a click away. Don't trust the AI.
Yes.
Try not to use AI if you can help it, because it is destroying our natural resources. If you don't know about this, haven't heard about it, please look into it. It takes a ton of like water to power these AI things. Like, just be judicious in your use of AI, people. It's not harmless. Yeah. So that's your little lesson. Hey, here's a fun thing. Let's run a contest where you write like a scary nursery rhyme that's secretly about how AI is killing the earth.
Oh, that'd be pretty interesting to see. Yeah,
so here's what you do. You submit that to fantastichistorypod@gmail.com. Or you can DM it to us on Instagram or Threads, where we are Fantastic HPod. Or, well, RIP TikTok. We don't have a TikTok anymore because there's no more TikTok. But maybe we can post a video short about it on YouTube, where we are Fantastic History Podcast.
That's right. And if TikTok is somehow back by now, we just dated ourselves.
Yeah, we did.
So that's fine.
As of the date of this recording, like, TikTok is no more. RIP to a real one.
It is now going to be a topic of this podcast.
Absolutely not. I don't care enough to talk about it. Now, if we do want to do an episode about Vine, I'm always up for that.
Vine, there you go.
But yeah, so that's I'm doing the pitch a little bit out of order, but hey, thanks for tuning in, giving us a little bit of your time today. Hopefully I didn't tarnish too many of your precious childhood memories. And before you close out of your podcast platform, go ahead, give us a 5-star rating, nice little review. Technically, the review doesn't have to be nice, but having a review along with the rating helps us out a lot as far as like getting our podcast in front of new listeners, like Spotify and Apple Podcasts especially. We'll start pushing our show as a recommended show more and more often if we have ratings that include reviews.
That's true.
Review doesn't even have to be relevant. You can post your little poem about AI in a review if you want. Like, knock yourself out. I look forward to hearing what everyone has to say. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.